Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we have a brand new prompt from a brand new listener, or maybe they're not a brand new listener, but it's their first time submitting. So a big thank you to CEM Oh No. And if I'm pronouncing that wrong, you email me, we'll make it happen. We'll fix it up in post. Actually, it's going to be too late by the time it comes out because it's already going to be done in post. But anyway, we'll make sure the next time that you submit, we'll pronounce it correctly. Before we get into that, of course, if you, much like CEM Ono, want to have us build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click a link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on YouTube, so go over there and click subscribe and all the other buttons. We're also still on Twitter, so you can follow us there at Let's Worldbuild. We've also got a Discord if you'd rather talk to us more directly about world building, about how to pronounce your name, perhaps. Anything that you want, we've got a Discord for that. Come join us, come chat with us. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, or if you just want access to our sweet, sweet patron-only goodies, like, for example, if you wanted your prompt to be 2 episodes rather than 1, that is how you would do that, by going over to our Patreon and giving us just a little bit of money, saying thank you, and supporting the podcast that way. Now, with all of the shilling out of the way, let's dive right into it. So our tenets and our world building prompt again comes from CEM Ono. These are all very short and sweet, but this is what we've got. The prompt is: the name of the world is Warevinet. Warevinet is the most dangerous and extremely beautiful world of magic. Simple, straight to the point. The 3 tenets that we've got are humans with butterfly wings and bird wings, also known as angels. And finally, mermaids with holographic fishtails. Now, I'm under the assumption that we're dealing with holographic, meaning iridescent, like kind of like shimmery and stuff like that. However, Daniel, I have to imagine that you're going to come and say, like, no, they're holographic hard light technology coming out of the tails. So, Daniel, why don't you start us off with that? And we'll go on from there. Daniel, kick us off today.
As usual, I will defy your expectations.
I anticipate it. You defy nothing, sir. I know what to expect at this point.
I actually wasn't thinking about this as sci-fi, but my first is the masters of magic are as wise as they are pernicious, residing singly and in solitude among manses, hovels, and castles.
So we've got a bunch of wizard towers, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, love it. Big fan of that already. So pernicious, can we talk a little bit more about that? Are we thinking trickster? Are we thinking malicious in some way? Like, what do you think of when you think of pernicious, Daniel?
I'm thinking they are kind of very radical minded. They have their own interests. Some of them might be nice. Some of them might be really rude. Some of them might be willfully malicious, but they're not necessarily, they're self-interested, you know.
Fascinating. Daniel, I have to say that description perfectly exemplifies the first of my tenets. Because when I saw, okay, we've got the tenet being dangerous and extremely beautiful, I was thinking, okay, we've got a lot of magic. What is beauty based? And I'm like, okay, we want a magic system based on aesthetic. And then I'm like, wait a minute. What if magic were ruled by aesthetic through fashion? And so my tenet is the magic here is basically fashion magic. And Daniel, your description of the masters of magic being pernicious and self-interested, you basically just described the fashion industry at large. So I love that this is already jibing, and I'm really excited to see where we go from there.
Are they all badly dressed and they're bickering over this?
Well, if magic is based on fashion, I would imagine that it is like the most immaculate. Now, mind you, right? Fashion and beauty have different definitions and different waves of how it looks. So I would imagine that there's different fashion styles that you can pull off. So you could look slovenly, but it is a deliberate slovenliness that you have to yourself, right? Kind of like how John Waters likes to wear like a t-shirt that's like crumpled and ugly, but it's worth like $1,000. That's kind of something that I have in mind as well.
So it's like derelict from Zoolander.
In part, yes, in part. Like there's all sorts of interesting fashion styles that you can attribute to magic and stuff like that. And I think it'd be a really fun way that we can explore a system that is where beauty is important.
Can we just make this Zoolander, actually?
I mean, maybe. What is your first tenet, Courtney? Maybe you can push us in a Zoolander direction.
Sadly, no. My first one relates to the mermaids. I wanted to say that they are predators, and they use their holographic tails to lure in unsuspecting prey, similar to anglerfish.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Also, now that you've said that, I'm just thinking of the mermaid ad from Zoolander, where wetness is the essence of water. Is that the line? It's something like that.
I forgot about that in there. Oh yeah. You should watch that movie again.
It's pretty good. The first one holds up. I refuse to see the second one just because it's dog shit. But I've heard that it's dog shit. It might be good. It might be a hidden gem, but come on, it's probably not. Anyway. So we're creating Zoolander, and I love the fact that your mermaids have like illusory tails in some way. That's really cool.
Or iridescent or glowing or reflective. Doesn't necessarily have to be like the true definition of holographic, but along those lines.
I sense tension between man-eating mermaids and badly dressed wizards.
Yes.
I mean, in their eyes, they're dressed quite well, though. Obviously,
yeah.
Actually, I'm curious. Like, does that mean that the mermaids are also dressed fashionably if they want to be like a magic user of some kind?
I don't know if I want to buy into the idea that all magic is controlled through fashion because it restricts things. I mean, it'd be interesting if the wizards specifically do that. Or these
Oh no, I'm suggesting why not have a little bit of both. Like there's natural magic or magic outside of the fashion thing, but like it's kind of like mixing magic and technology. What does that look like,
So I was picturing these mermaids as very vicious, like predatory, carnivorous, like
that's not thing too,
not the stunningly beautiful mermaids that you would normally, but like, I mean, we just watched Renfield last night, actually, with Nicolas Cage as Dracula, and picturing like those kinds of fangs, the like pointy, like
the Nosferatu style fangs.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably don't wear clothes,
or they like rip the skin off.
Oh,
they wear the skins of the things that they've murdered. I think that they're very barbaric in their whatever clothes they might wear as decoration.
That was going to be my follow-up question: is how sentient do you imagine these mermaids being, these merfolk being?
I think they like are sentient. I just think that they're very vicious and violent in their ways.
Look, I'm here to support vicious mermaids, Courtney. Okay, I just want to know the stakes that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I think they're fully aware they have their own culture. It's just the way that they need to consume flesh leads to them being dangerous and predatory.
Gotcha.
I wonder if in order to get on land, they have to take people's flesh.
Oh, like a really fucked up Little Mermaid kind of thing.
Yeah, oh my god, could you imagine Ariel? But she's wearing like a girl suit.
Oh my god.
Okay, hold on. Daniel, I thought you said that you wanted to move away from fashion because that just sounds like you're wearing like human leather at that point. You're stretching on like, oh man, these pants won't fit over my merfin or whatever it is as you're trying to like put human legs on, basically.
What I mean is I didn't want to have fashion dictate all magic, so I think this is like, it's neat in that it would tie in the through line of fashion having something to do with it thematically, which is kind of
Oh, I'm just giving you bullshit, Daniel, because I just think it's a funny image of like watching a mermaid try and like how
zip
like sometimes
her face up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like struggle to get on a pair of pants or something like that.
God.
Get on. I just see that, but like
but it's
a
like
horrifically dark moment. Yeah, exactly.
This is the best Little Mermaid movie ever made.
I'm picturing, that skit from I Think You Should Leave, the like
Max Chaos one?
Yes, the
yeah.
anywheres.
I've got too much shit on. It's hot. Yeah.
I'm picturing like that level of like grotesque, maybe before like that illusion is complete, but like if you see through the illusion, that's what you see. It's like super fucked up, just like skin mask.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love that. I love that.
And
so
it
much.
ties into the most dangerous and extremely beautiful world full of magic. If you can have mermaids that slip on human pajamas and they're very beautiful, but underneath they're actually horrific, bloodthirsty fish people.
Yeah. Amazing.
The holidays are right around the corner. Mermaids, make sure that you have your literal footy pajamas ready. Oh man. Okay. This is as much as I would love to dwell on these horrific mermaids just a little bit more. Daniel, why don't you hit us with your second tenet? What are you working with here?
Well, incidentally, I just looked at it. I don't know. It makes sense, but it is no human has ever seen the ocean before until now, and this has changed everything.
Oh, that's
literally the mermaid.
Holy shit.
Does that mean, what was the guy called in Little Mermaid?
Prince Eric?
Does Eric finally see the ocean in his Little Mermaid princess? Fucking horrible skin suit.
Oh, God.
Okay. Question. So when you say have never seen the ocean, do you mean that they've never seen the ocean? Do you mean that no one has ever lived to tell the tale of seeing the ocean before?
I think no human has ever seen it before. So it's only been legended or talked about.
Interesting.
That is very interesting, yeah. Because now I'm imagining that the merfolk are not just like sea or ocean-based mermaids, but they're also river mermaids and stuff like that as well, which would be kind of interesting because river merfolk aren't as like well represented as like full oceanic ones. Although you've got like the anglerfish angle going on. So
they could use smaller bodies of water to travel deeper into the world.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
They're both fresh and saltwater fish.
Right.
Sure. And again, maybe like the use of humans is like necessary for traversal between water types or something like that.
Because you got to get out of the river a little bit and go to the next body of water, which means you need a skin suit.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. Daniel, that is a great tenet, by the way. That is such a cool and specific tenet. So when you say that though, I can't help but imagine that we're now like locked into like a very mountainous region for some reason. Like anything beyond the mountains is incredibly difficult to get to. And something recently happened where that has changed. Also, we're working with like the danger. So yeah, that makes sense too. Man, yeah, that's really fun. There's so much possibility there.
Yeah, I wanted it to be open-ended because I didn't really know. I just had this vision of like seeing the ocean for the first time and what that would be like. And since we're talking about mermaids now, that's quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
As someone who is currently in the Midwest, who is longing to see an ocean, I can tell you, it's a wild feeling. Anyway, I don't really have a good segue for my second tenet, but the way that the prompt and the tenets are worded, it says humans with butterfly wings and bird wings. So that to me implies that these are not like a different race or different species, but rather these are humans who have grafted on wings or have somehow like stuck wings onto themselves. So I've decided that I'm going body horror, but not in the like surgical sense. Shout out to C.R. Rowanson, by the way. If he's listening, he'll love this concept. But basically, I have it in mind that the wings that they're using are actually parasitic in some way. So these are humans who have attached like living parasites that give them flight. And again, if we're going with fashion, that's also a big part of it as well, where, you know, how there's the Victoria's Secret of the Paris shows where it's like, oh, wow, they're walking down and they have angel wings on, you know, like it's that kind of thing. Except, oh, they're moving. And it's because they're grotesque parasites that have just grown into wings, whether they be insect or feathers or what have you. But yeah, that's what I got. Gross, weird parasites are the reason for human wings.
I like that image of it, and it makes me think to a couple of things. One is Pretty Do Street Station, of course, we got to bring it up. The hand creatures that like are parasitic and control their hosts. Do you know what I'm talking about?
From Parasite, the anime?
No, Pretty Do Street Station.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, because there's also an anime called Parasite where they manifest in like the hands. Yeah.
No, just the hands that graft onto people and control them.
Yes.
And then also the Scavenger's Reign, which I've been watching on HBO. It's an animated series about people on a very, very alien, weird world. And I could see something like this happening there because there's stuff in that show of like just parts of things grafting onto other things and mutating in weird ways. So like I'm kind of picturing like somebody like ripping the parasite wing off of some other being and like affixing it to themselves to get this. So it's like a very like deliberate transfer.
That's horrifying. And I like that. Yeah. I like the idea that there are creatures who are basically just purely hosts to like numerous parasites that give them all sorts of vestigial and like powerful like limbs and other things. Kind of like if you're playing the game Spore from back in the day where you're just like, I'm going to take off the beak and move it around. You know, it's like that kind of like genetic soup that exists.
Yeah.
Except in person. And that is just, ugh, it's gross to think about it that way.
The show that you mentioned, I just started watching that too, and it's some of the most amazing like xenobiology conceived, like visually put to conception that I've ever seen. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
it makes sense just watching how when you start to learn how these things function just by watching them, and it doesn't explain anything, but it makes sense, and it's just like really amazing, that show.
Yeah, I agree. I have no idea, like watching it, like how did they
Mhm.
think of some of these things? It's like
Yeah.
so mind blowing, the
So weird.
interconnectedness and everything. Yeah.
And I'll make as you're watching, you're like, okay, I'm starting to understand this ecosystem, but at the same time, I have no idea how this ecosystem works. You know?
Right.
What was the name of that? Because that sounds dope as shit.
Scavenger's Reign.
Scavenger's Reign. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. On HBO. I gotta get HBO, Courtney. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I'll stick to my Great British Bake Off for the time being. Thank you very much.
That's fair. That's fair.
For those who are thinking about this, the name that has been given to this world, I was just running some anagrams against it. And the only interesting things that come out of it is reweaving, water vein, and invertera, which all interestingly can work with what we're working on so far.
My brain immediately goes water vein, but yeah, I think all of those do work, but I think I prefer the water vein one.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up the name of the world because that is what my second tenant is based on. Actually.
Courtney, what do you got?
Yeah. So I thought that the Vinet or Vinet part of the name of the world sounded like it was related to wine. So I wanted to establish that there are vineyards of the gods that produce some sort of special or magical wine.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Did we have any ideas about the wine, like the properties of the wine, perhaps? And what about it is magical exactly?
When you mentioned wine, I'm thinking about probably these badly dressed wizards potentially making wine for themselves as well.
Oh, yeah. I could definitely see that. Like they're on their own, like wizard tower vineyard of sorts or something. But yeah, as far as properties go, I didn't have anything in mind. I just thought it would be very like a very high-end luxury product. Maybe it has some sort of like amplified alcohol effect, or it can provide powers of some sort, or and like I'm saying gods kind of loosely here. It doesn't necessarily need to be like the Greek pantheon type of thing, but just something that basically very powerful entities enjoy.
Okay, two things about that. One, in my brain, I'm just imagining like a slope on a mountain, and there's a wizard's tower, and there's like an army of merfolk trying to like sack the wizard's tower so they can get at the sweet, sweet, delicious wine.
Yeah.
Like there's like a siege going on, and like that is like the conflict that's going on. And secondly, I have a question for you. Do the wines need to be magical? Because if they're mundane and they're just extremely like sought after and they're extremely rare, that to me can be really interesting to work with as well. You know, it's kind of like, what is the most rare, expensive, and sought after mundane good? And if it's wine, that's kind of an interesting thing that we can work with too.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be magical, more so just special. So it could be very high value. It could be made of, grapes that are mythological in some way. Something like that.
I mean, could there be so we've established a relationship with the ocean and what is known about it, and it seems to be this mythical sort of thing, and it seems to me that the mermaids are encroaching for some reason. I wonder if the wizards, being sort of hermit types and weirdos, I'm thinking like they're all kind of like Gary Oldman and Dracula, like each one of them in their own special way.
Ooh.
That's how weird I'm thinking. Like very elaborately dressed, but also fucking weird. But anyway, so my point being, if they're making these wines, perhaps there is something in the wines that comes from either the ocean or the mermaids that they're trying to reclaim. And that taste of the ocean is really precious to the people in the land. But the mermaids want it back,
So there is actually something called a sea grape. It's just like a kind of algae or seaweed, I think. But like maybe in this world, it could be actual like sea grapes from the ocean.
Oh, I love that, because I can see this interplay. Like I like the idea of Rob, especially not making it magical in the sense that like that ends up being the solution in and of itself. But its magicalness could come from, like you're saying, this mundane property of it that makes it legendary. So like the people might be tasting the sea and they can talk about it being a sea grape. They've never seen the sea. So to them, this wine is very precious, right?
Yeah.
But the mermaids, for whatever reason, either want to destroy the wine or get it back, or to them, maybe it's a sacrilege to have taken and created this wine,
Yeah, like the wizards at some point had like foraged the sea grapes and like went back and cultivated it in their, I don't know, like aquarium vineyards or something.
Okay. Okay, there's so much here that we need to unpack because there's so much really cool shit that we can talk about here. Number one, the fact that you have a history told through wine is a really fascinating idea. Like people only know of the ocean through this grape and through the wines themselves. One, amazing idea. Really fucking fabulous. And two, Daniel, I believe that your second tenet was the fact that humans have only recently seen the ocean, and as a result, this has changed everything. And what I imagine this to be is, it has caused conflict between humans and the merfolk. And then on top of that, it also indicates or suggests to me that the merfolk have effectively created a barrier around the ocean. So it's something like the merfolk encroach so far inland that the humans aren't even allowed to come close to a coast. And so obviously this sea grape is like a myth of like rebellion or a myth of like something that it is literally a seed of rebellion in the form of a grape, in the form of a wine.
When we were talking about the different races here too, we have the merfolk, we have human, and he lists human with butterfly wings, right? And I wonder if like either the wizard types are either the humans or they're these modified humans, and that way we can kind of sidestep no human has ever seen the ocean. Like perhaps these wizards aren't quite human and they're the ones who have seen the ocean and they've recovered these grapes, but the rest of the population, which is human, they're the ones who are learning of the ocean by virtue of the grapes.
That's what I was thinking too, and I was picturing it more like there's just a natural like landscape of the world that means that humans are in these sort of like mountain enclosed valleys that are preventing them from getting to the sea, but the wizards who might be the humans with these wing attachment parasite things, they can fly over the mountains, get to the ocean, bring stuff back from that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to anticipate what you said there, but I was because I knew you were leading me there.
Which would also explain why, like, in my brain, I think of like wizard towers in the mountains. So it's just like, the lair of the wizard is the mountain. So you have like mountain men, but wizards who are also like fashion designers in some way, I guess.
Right. We should probably, figure out how the fashion bit works. Because I think it's very interesting. It's probably at the core of them. But in a way, we've gotten that barrier that you're talking about almost is a natural barrier. Like they almost don't have to construct it because it's the rebellion is the wizards originally going over and plucking those things. So it's I guess it's not much rebellion so much as them taking what they should have taken.
Well, I'm also thinking that the merfolk are so territorial that like
Mhm.
that is another reason why like regular exploration doesn't tend to go well as well,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. So it's probably an element of what you said before, where it's like
Yeah.
the reason why no one has ever seen the ocean is because they never get close enough and they get killed, by the mermaid.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it be for like pseudo religious reasons, that's also the
Mhm.
other thing that I have in mind is that there is something sacred about the grape, sacred about, oh man, the fact that there are like ocean vineyards or like beach vineyards is also a really
Yeah.
interesting thing. And I mean, we could also go like more because you said that there are ocean grapes, Courtney, but we can kind of take that and just make it whatever we want. So the
Mhm.
idea that you could have like entire vineyards on the water is a really interesting thing to me, kind of like floating gardens of the Aztec Empire, but you know, an entire ocean that is full of grapes or at least partially covered in vines and grapes and stuff like that. That's really interesting to me.
Mhm.
Damn, there's so much that we can work with here. There's a lot. Um, so Daniel, should we address the fashion stuff now?
We could I mean, we could talk a little bit more about the sense of magic. So far, we don't really have the presence of magic other than that it's clear these wizards have affixed some biology to themselves, right?
Right.
And they
Mhm.
seem to have more power than the people because they're able to create grapes and but
Mhm.
I don't the one whatever we do, I don't want them to be um figures who have any sort of government or moral authority. Like they're really fringes. They're things on the fringe,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
freakish kind of things. People don't really want to mess with them.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, like, if they have, taken these parasitic things off of other stuff and, like,
Mm.
attached
Mhm.
it to themselves, like, can imagine regular humans being like, "Ooh, these guys are fucking weird."
Yeah.
Like, they make
Sure.
amazing wine, it's delicious, but other than that, we don't wanna
Uh-huh.
we don't wanna see them at all.
I can see someone like, some kids trying to, as a dare, like sneak into like some manse of one of these
Mm,
wizards to get, a bottle of this wine and things go
yeah,
horribly awry.
yeah,
Mm.
I like that, that's a fun idea.
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking as well is that we can kind of use the wizards as a tension point between the humans, right?
Mhm.
What I mean by that is if the wizards like they're all about like altering their biology and like grafting parasitic things to them as their form of magic, maybe they stand out amongst humans as outcasts and whatnot because they're the ones who don't indulge in fashion magic, in the magic of the world that is traditional to humans, and maybe they're the exception to the rule in that regard
Oh,
where
they've rejected it. Mhm.
exactly, and obviously fashion designers will look at that and they'll try and mimic it in some way, like, oh, they'll try and create the silhouette of a wing or create the silhouette that is inspired by wizardry, but it's not the
Mhm.
same, it's still a facsimile of it, and their fashion magic still exists. Again, if we're focusing on the beauty aspect of the
Uh-huh.
prompt as well, I think that works pretty well in positioning the wizards in between the merfolk and the humans and where they sit in society.
And their fashion being odd. I wonder too if this is another radical suggestion, but the move to make the wine not magical. I wonder if we can make the entirety of the setting not really overtly magical. Like so perhaps there is fashion and it affects some kind of power in their society, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
maybe it's not a magical power. Like maybe their fashion is somehow connected to the sea in some way, so
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking like as opposed to having fashion generate what we'd expect from a typical fantasy magical stuff happening from it, like I don't know, like charm and you can weave stuff out of nothing. What you expect from magical fantasy. What if the fashion aspect of this does something that is ultimately mundane but feels magical in their society?
Mm.
Like, it's just a very particularly beautiful thing that attracts a lot of attention in, like, a non-magical way, but it's
Yeah, it feels
so
magical to
stunning.
them. I don't know if that violates because the prompt says the world is full of magic, right?
Yeah,
Explicitly.
that's I
But
Yeah, yeah.
that
but
mm,
I'm trying to push against that because so far we have mermaids who what they're doing certainly seems magical because they're wrapping themselves in skin suits,
right.
but that could ultimately be biological. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
if instead of having a high magic setting, it could be low magic, but that just feels high
Mm.
magic. And I don't know how to do that, but I think that might be interesting because then we can get really
Mm.
keep mundane things very sparkly.
Well, what we could do is because low magic doesn't mean that there's no magic. It just means that
Right.
magic is concentrated into specific people's hands,
And it's
right?
very important too as a result.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Mhm.
So maybe what you can do is you can have these you can have the fashion designers of the world who are fonts of magic, but in that regard, they're if we're talking about this in role-playing game terms, it doesn't mean that they're a 20th level wizard. It means that they're like a 5th level wizard who is specced out. Because think about it this way, right? If you had access to 3rd level spells in real life, you'd be able to crack reality in half.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I wonder, okay, what if their source of magic also somehow is stolen from the sea? Because that would create
Yeah.
more enmity with the mermaids. Perhaps they possess something that over the years has fueled their fashion magic.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
wondering
Oh.
too, harvesting other things from the sea, like kelps, or using, I don't know, the vines of these sea grapes or the
Hmm.
flesh of them or something to spin fine sea
Hmm.
silk threads that they use to put into other stuff. And maybe that's this iridescent holographic quality that the mermaids have too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that if the wizards graft parasites onto themselves, then why can't the fashionistas as well? Except they harvest it from the glamour using merfolk, right? It comes into direct conflict in that way. Or maybe they're harvesting it from something that doesn't necessarily fight back, so they don't know that it's, merfolk related in some way.
They took the flesh of the sea, Courtney.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
parallel to them taking the flesh of humans.
Yeah. Or it could be like the thermerfolk eggs or something that they don't realize are eggs.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
so
Yeah.
so that works, but I'm afraid that it kind of takes away from the specialness of the grapes that we were talking about earlier. Where it's just okay, and on top of that, there's conflict within the merfolk that way as well. I feel like you're putting a hat on a hat, so I feel like we have to pick one or the other in that regard. I mean, I'm not opposed entirely to the idea of both happening, but I feel like perhaps too much emphasis is being put on their relationship with the merfolk. You know what I mean?
It could be like, if we want to, I like the idea that this is a deep and abiding enmity that goes back a long time.
I
I mean,
agree. Yeah.
I could, for example, see, if it's eggs, which is what she was suggesting, perhaps it's ancient eggs that have been used from maybe this basin used to be an ocean, right? And
Mm,
they're taking the calcified remains of eggs that are
Oh, yeah.
here,
mm,
and
Yeah.
that's part of the chalk of their fashion, like the fabric of it. And
mhm.
that also upsets the mermaids because you're using literally our graveyard.
Right.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah, that
ancient
could work.
mermaid graveyard.
Yeah.
Wow. That's why they would be attracted to going to that basin too in the first place.
Mhm.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that works for me. By the
Mhm.
way, I was going to say, wow, this world feels really small, and I genuinely don't mind that at all. I like the idea that what we're creating here is not an entire world, but what feels like a country within a world, or like a very specific
Mhm.
region within a world. So we can kind of come back to it later and just throw it in somewhere else.
Mhm.
um the other alternative that I was thinking of besides the graveyards is the idea that, I don't know, maybe there were river merfolk before humans recognized that you can just harvest them for magical materials, and then humans do what humans do in those situations. But that's more depressing than the grave robbing, I think.
I mean, we could have, there's probably different versions of mermaids too. I
Yeah.
bet some of them are river folk.
Yeah, or yeah, maybe something happened where the ancient enemies like the merfolk retreated, and then it's been generations have gone by, but the merfolk don't forget. The merfolk never forget.
Hmm.
That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
I like this very it is like you're saying, it's a small world, but I think there you can put a lot of layers into it, which is neat.
Oh
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
if you have divisions within the mermaids, that gives them a lot of nuance. You can have a lot of historical interplay between the fact that this is an old calcified graveyard of the ocean, and yet it's also being renewed with these grapes that are fresh from the sea, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
history to learn between the two. Maybe the weavers of the art, like the fashion people, they don't even know that it's a calcified graveyard, and that's something to
Yeah.
discover.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hear me out. What if there's a sea witch who offers a mermaid legs so they can go and fall in love with a prince in the human world, and then we can Romeo and Juliet it up, so that way there's unity, and also there's a crab that sings.
Oh my God. I could totally see an inversion of that where it's like you have a youngish mermaid girl who's taken on human skin who has some task to perform, and some human falls in love with her, but she really doesn't give a shit, and she's going to eat him eventually, but she needs to get something, and it plays out like a romance for part of it, and then it turns into a horror movie.
Yeah. Maybe we could go with your idea that you had brought up before of the kids sneaking into a wizard's vineyard tower, and like maybe this mer girl is part of that group.
Yes,
pretending to be.
That's good. Yeah. And then, like, just as the chorus to Kiss the Girl comes on, like, she transforms and eats the shit out of him.
Yes.
Like rips his face off.
Amazing movie. Amazing movie. Love it. And the wizard comes in, he's like, well, fuck.
Not again. God.
Because I'm sure the wizards have fought mermaids before.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing, again, I'm going back to one of my favorite books, which I've mentioned a million times here, which is the Dying Earth series. But in that world, there's all the wizards are fucking weirdos who are horrible. And they all live alone and do terrible things. But like, some of them are really powerful and some of them are really not powerful. They're just kind of lucky. So I can see, like, if the protagonists are not the mermaids and they're the humans, having to actually team up with this wizard for a minute,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like a bumbling crazy person.
All right. As much fun as I'm having within this world, we do have to do a summary of our tenets because we've still got a twist to get through, y'all. So, Daniel, you started us off. What was your first tenet?
The masters of magic are as wise as they are pernicious, residing singly in solitude among manses, hovels, and castles.
Okay, we didn't really talk about the pernicious part, did we? I don't think that enough attention has been paid to that yet.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm happy to talk more about it. I just think that they're very unpredictable and very selfish.
Right. But that's what I mean. I mean, like, what can we do to amplify that up to 11? Yes, they're making the wine. Maybe it's just for themselves, right? Like maybe they're just a bunch of drunks. But
yeah, I think they are.
Right. So let's amplify that further, right? What can we do to like crank up the perniciousness? What can we do to like maybe they're like often seen as like masterminds behind like conflict of merfolk and human in some way, something like that.
I'd rather them like be very disinterested or uninterested in political maneuvering. They're not interested in the affairs of humans like below or really the mermaids. But I could see, because they're selfish, for example, there's an industry down below where the people are in the mountains. And it has to do with essentially recovered stuff that's been calcified from the ocean. And I'm sure they know that. So I'm sure that they exploit people, or they maybe, they hire people to do their work and get them more supplies, and they're probably cruel, or you have to bargain with them to get certain knowledge, and that's difficult. I can imagine them being individually different kinds of jerks. That's what I'm picturing. Like this particular one, if you bring him a roasted turkey, he'll be less cruel and not polymorph you. Whereas this one, if you say, the word baffled, which he just hates, he will set everything on fire. Like they're all kind of
yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I had in mind, Daniel, as well.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, because in traditional mythology, like the wizard is the quest giver, right? He is the one who calls the hero to action. But now let's take that and be like, I just want you to go and do this task for me. And I'm
go away.
And I'm going to like wrap it in mysticism so I appear mysterious, but really I just need you to do my dirty work.
That's exactly what they're like. Yeah. And they can probably be manipulated too, because you know that they're fundamentally selfish. So if you know what they want, you can work with them,
Yes. Yeah. And I agree. I don't think that they should be involved in politics at all. That's not what I meant. But I meant like they're quest givers, but they are going to inadvertently cause a bunch of like
problems
and problems. Yes, specifically between merfolk and humans.
And they probably hate each other more than anyone else. That's what I think. Yeah. I think that they are rivals with each other 100%. over the wine, and their version of it. Maybe it's not that they don't like fashion. They just think that their fashion is superior to the world below they came from. And so they have their own fashion shows.
No. Who cares about fashion? We make wine that is transcend. They're wine snobs. That's what they're doing. Okay,
they have parties
every
year,
year,
but it's like very selective, and they're very pissy about it.
Yeah. Okay. Instead of a wizards council, they literally get together every year and like have a wine competition.
Judge.
Yeah. Exactly. And so like there's like generations of like, oh, this person's going to sabotage my vineyard this year. And like that's the political machinations that I'm talking about.
That's exactly it. It's super petty and super local.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh my God. And they all, I just want to stress this enough, they all look either like Gary Oldman or they look like Nick Cage in this new movie. It's either or. They're not horrible undead monsters, but they look like that.
I would like to throw in a third option, which is Mad Madam Mim from The Sword and Stone.
Yes, more that. Yes, 100%.
And by the way, Mad Madam Mim's rivalry with Merlin in that movie is exactly what I have
just
in
like
mind
that.
as well.
Yes, me too.
And once you toss in like the grafting part of their magic, it's like, man, we're really heavy on the Disney movies today.
It's so fun.
Okay, yes, that's great. I'm happy with that. I love that. This is amazing. My first one was the fashion thing. I think that like aesthetics and beauty and magic all kind of go hand in hand. I think that we could flesh that out a little bit further in terms of like what the magic does. But I like the delineation that we've made between the merfolk, the wizards, and the traditional human magic that is normally involved. But yeah, I'm not entirely satisfied, but I'm willing to move on so we can kind of figure it out a little bit later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like we probably will get some cool ideas when we do factions and stuff. Is this a one shot?
It's a one part.
Oh, it's a one part. Well, never mind.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that if we had a second episode to do factions, that would certainly be the thing to do.
And maybe the magic is very artifice based or enchantment based because it's, like we were saying, more practical. I don't know.
I was thinking a lot of glamours and stuff like that as well. Like the ability to do illusory magic is, again, super underrated in terms of like how D&D represents it compared to what it could actually do in, you know, the real world. Like having like clothes that muffle your sound and make you effectively silent, super, super powerful in the real world, and vice versa. Like if you create an area that is just like, hey, everything around this area is silent, way more dangerous, way more powerful than you might expect, especially in the right settings. Like go to a busy ass factory and then make everything silent where, oh yeah, you're kind of relying on your senses to guide you through places. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of my, maybe that's what we can do is we can make it very sensual in that the magic relies very much on the senses of the other people to perceive it. So it's about sound, sight, taste, it's feel, etc. I think that might be something kind of interesting as well. But anyway, Courtney, what was your first tenet and how are we doing with it?
Mine was that the mermaids are predators and use their holographic tails to lure in prey. And we haven't really gone into the luring too much, but I think it's it works with what we've discussed as far as the mermaids having a poor relationship with humans and taking their flesh to travel on land and stuff. So
certainly predatory. We've got the predator part down, no problem. But yeah, do you think that they're sufficiently barbarous? Let me ask you that.
Certainly with how I'm picturing them, yes. Yes.
Okay. But like now that we're effectively looking at them as like cultivators of like sea grapes, is that still like, because mind you don't have to like look at it in a processed way, but like, does that still jibe for you in terms of how you see them?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I don't think that they're like growing or protecting of this kind of plant takes away from the fact that they like will just consume raw human flesh.
Okay, good. I just wanted
mermaids.
Yeah. Courtney, I just wanted to make sure that your bloodlust was sated. Okay. That's all I'm looking out for you. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay.
Yeah.
What I really like about the study too is it's very tight. Like I could easily see this being a single, if you're doing RPG, like a single exploration area where you've got the
Mhm.
basin, you've got some locations that are the wizard spots, and then you've got like the
yeah.
beach. And that alone, maybe there's a grotto, like that alone is enough to create some really cool adventures.
Yeah.
And even in the short time we fleshed out, I think, strong corners of how this works that you could easily build a module with, which is fun.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. To me, I see this as like a very mountainous island
Mhm.
where like you can literally just copy paste it into most magical settings and it would probably work. just
Yeah,
fine.
it'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And you can, there's even multiple ways to play. I mean, I'm sorry, we're in the middle of the tenants, but what I think is also interesting is there's multiple point of views, right? You could play the mermaids, although there'll be a little bit less mystery, and you could play the humans. You could even play a crazy wizard, like,
Mhm.
and you can mix the party
Mhm.
together. Maybe I don't know if you'd be able to mix the mermaid in as easily with non-mermaids, but there's ways to make it work. But I think it's always possibilities are on hand.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like a hidden role RPG where like
Mhm.
one is a secret mermaid with the
Yeah.
ultimate goal to like
Yes.
rip apart the wizard that they're looking for or something. But I could also like when you said, you could play wizards, it could be like that end of year competition that we talked about where you're all together
Mhm.
at a banquet, like everybody is playing a wizard and you're trying to like talk about how amazing your wine is, and that's the one shot is just you like puffing up your
Yeah.
chest about how amazing your grapes
Yeah.
are and stuff.
I love it.
All politics, all backstabbing, all like, oh, did you see that Grimland the Bland put in some salt into his rival's mug? Like all sorts of nonsense like that.
Mm.
So
Um,
good.
yeah, like there's so many different things that you could do with it.
Everyone plays an evil character in that one because you're all
Yeah.
bastards.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, exactly.
And then you talking about the illusory magic affecting all senses, like that could also be part of the backstabbing in a competition like that, where they make the judges taste different things as they're tasting certain wines, or like
Ooh,
infusing
yeah,
their wines with like a foul smell or a particularly pleasant smell, depending on the outcome they want.
sure. Oh, okay. So for the hidden role thing that you're talking about, there's like the hidden mermaid. You could literally just put Ariel like, oh, this is a peasant looking girl who can't talk. But the reason that she can't talk is not because she can't, but because she doesn't have like human lips or a human mouth. So like if she tries to speak, she's gonna sound like a fish person, so she just acts mute. But in
Mhm.
She doesn't have
reality,
lungs.
exactly. So like if you're doing this as a one shot and people aren't aware, then they'll immediately just be like, oh, it's like Ariel from the Little Mermaid, and they're going to like try and get her to like smooch a person or something like that. But in reality, they're a horrific monster in human skin.
And they're so cute.
Yeah.
Until the illusion wears off.
Right. And that's how you play on preconceived notions of like characters, right?
Uh-huh.
Where it's just like, oh boy, this is very clearly a mermaid, like blah blah blah.
There's clues in the beginning of the adventure that the
Oh
players
yeah.
promptly ignore because they're not paying attention, and you wouldn't expect them to pick up on it. Where some little girl goes missing in the very beginning,
Mm,
and
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
skin suit.
Wait. It's not that she went missing, it's that she returned after being missing. And
Yes, they found her. She's fine.
yeah, she
Mhm.
was fine, but she was so scared she never talked again.
Her parents disappeared though.
Yeah,
Now she's an orphan, so she
yeah,
joined this little kids club because she's so lonely.
yeah. Or no, it's an orphanage, like
The
yeah.
orphanage, yes. Kids are disappearing.
Oh, and the orphanage supplies employees for the competition to work the competition.
For
Like
the wizard.
they're like the serving
Oh my
girls and stuff.
God.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, she's a servant girl, and so that's
Yeah, yeah.
and you can even run the competition if you want to run it where the players are humans sneaking in to steal wine during the competition. Like they could come in while the competition is going on. Maybe one of the players is also a wizard in the competition, and when they all kind of get meshed together, that's when the serving girl gets brought into it. But little do you know, she has her own
Yeah.
agenda.
This could also easily just be run as a heist, right? Because if
Yeah,
we're,
to steal the grapes.
yeah, no, not just the grapes, but the wine. Because like, okay,
Mhm.
Courtney's second tenant, I'm jumping the gun. It's like the wine of the gods, right?
Mhm.
So obviously these are going to be incredibly expensive. So
Mhm.
thieves are going to want to go to this like Catalina wine mixer type event. and they're going to want to steal all the wine because it sells for crazy amounts of money.
I've got to run this as an OSR game, as like maybe a short. So much fun.
Oh, this could totally be like a Dungeons and Flagons. Morgan would be the host.
Yes. He's definitely the host of the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're way off track here, but I mean, I'm loving it, but we're way off track. So, Courtney, what was your second tenet? Oh no, wait, who we got? Nora, Daniel, what is your second tenet?
No one has seen no human has seen the ocean before until now, and that changes everything.
Yes, and I feel very satisfied with that. How about you?
Yeah, I think you can interpret until now meaning face-to-face encounter with a mermaid because it represents the ocean. It could mean an excursion there, and then you encounter the horrific mermaid situation, and you have to bring the information back home. It all depends on your perspective, I suppose.
Well, I mean, you could also see it as the wizards, like, when they say now, it means like, oh, they brought back and are starting to make wine.
Oh, true. That could be a new thing itself. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, cool.
Maybe the first generation doing this.
Yeah. My second tenet was that the wings, like when it says human with angel or human with butterfly wings, those are just grotesque parasites. And again, that is very much wizard based. So I feel happy with that.
But they see parasites, the creatures originally that gives them the wings.
What's that?
Maybe
like other parasites from the ocean, like or something else they recovered,
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So all magic effectively comes from the sea, according to
Seems
these
like it,
right?
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, because if they're using like dried merfolk eggs, then that's a big part of it too. So yeah, satisfied there. I'm happy with it. I'm also thinking that it goes beyond just wings as well. It could probably be other grotesque, horrifying things as well. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. So Courtney, finish us off here. What was your second tenet?
That there are vineyards of the gods that produce some sort of special wine, and I'm very happy with how that's turned out. That's become a surprisingly core part of the setting with the wizard sommeliers.
Yeah. I just love, again, Daniel and I have already talked about it, but I love how local this particular setting has become. It feels so goddamn fun. And anyway, okay. So that wraps it up for us, right? When it comes to the tenets, we got all of our tenets out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I suppose we have to roll and reconcile the twist now, right?
Yep.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's a one-parter, so we got to shorten it up. All right. And our twist this time is it's a trap. So how and why and what do we do with it's a trap here? What's the trap?
Well, the trap can't be the mermaids because that's obvious.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe we reverse trap the mermaids then, huh?
Like something about the wine that's luring them there is a trap. Like the wizards want to capture mer people or something.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. So
because they're pieces of shit, those wizards.
Yeah, exactly.
One of them wants to. Maybe they realize that the wine. Like, what if they turned the mermaid's blood into wine and they drank that? Wouldn't that be great?
Okay, I actually have an idea about that, Daniel. What if the grapes that we've been thinking about the entire time are actually not grapes, but they're actually like merfolk eggs, which is explained.
Didn't I see that before? Maybe not.
No, you had said that the eggs were a source of magic. I remember you said that. But I don't think we ever established that the grapes themselves were eggs, did we?
No, I think I was thinking it, but I probably never said that part.
Okay.
We moved on.
We could do something like that. So it's like, the wine isn't actually grape wine. It's actually like caviar wine, which is gross, actually.
Yeah.
Like really disgusting.
And that would explain why they care so much about the sea grapes and why they're so protective of them, despite being carnivores. And
and they're literally trying to protect their young. Plus it would tie into the thing that we were talking about previously where like dried eggs or something like that is magical through the fashion part. We were talking about that previously, right? So that could work too.
I could see Bergram's saying, well, this year I have a special drink and it involves a blender of mermaid babies.
Wow.
Well, no, it's about crushing them and then letting it ferment,
Hence the blender, because mergum is cheap.
I truly feel like this is a mix between like wine and like a surstrumming type thing, because it's like fishy, right? It's like it's a mix between caviar and wine, but it's like the product is probably going to smell really god awful at some point. And oh my God, does that build into the fashion part where in order for you to consume this wine, you have to have like a piece of fashion that dulls the sense of smell so you can truly taste it? Kind of like how during COVID, people were eating stuff that normally disgusts them to see if their lack of sense of smell would change anything. And it did. Like, this might work. It sounds dumb as fuck, but it might actually work, all things considered.
It could also be related to they want to get access to the mermaid tails that have this holographic iridescence to them.
True.
Maybe that can like increase the illusory magic or like impart new flavors, or they just want to use it for the fashion itself.
Yeah, I think the wizards are so petty. Like, they probably not even planning much. Like, it's something so dumb they want, or so petty and selfish. Like, either they just like the taste, or like you're saying, it looks cooler on their outfit, so let's just collect 1,000 tails. And or for the party, wouldn't it be nice if we had some shimmering curtains? Like, it's so awful and petty and mundane, and that's what pisses the mermaids off more than anything.
And also, it keeps it small. Right. It's not like they need mermaids to create a concoction that's going to make the island rise out of the water.
They don't give a shit.
Right. Yeah.
Or
summon some demon lord. No, it's incredibly petty. It's incredibly mundane.
This would be the most OSR setting possible. It would be so great. Because it's like, you're not going to save the princess. You're not going to set the kingdom free. You're going to kill one shitty wizard who is trying to eat an egg.
Yeah.
And half of you will die trying.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it. I could absolutely see you running this one.
Love it. I'm so ready.
Or this is totally like a game that Will would run.
He totally would.
Every NPC is just just the worst fucking person you've ever met.
Okay.
Will should absolutely run a version of this.
Okay. Courtney, I know that you've seen this show, but Daniel, have you ever heard of a show called Korgoth of Barbaria?
No.
Okay. Think of like Conan the Barbarian, right? That's kind of like the setting. It's post-apocalyptic. The only episode that ever aired, they go to this wizard's tower because they're looking for this thing that's like a mythological treasure because the wizard has died recently. And then halfway through the episode, the wizard comes back and he's like, I was on vacation. Why are you guys here in my home? And like the thing that they were trying to steal is also just like an incredibly mundane, like dumb artifact that is like very basic.
Yeah.
So all of this also feels like Korgoth of Barbaria, which I have not seen in a while, but I enjoyed very much when it came out.
It's like the whole premise of the Dying Earth novel is that the thief, it just wants to steal something. He doesn't understand the significance of this thing. I think he's just interested in the money potentially from stealing it. It happens to be a very powerful piece of a larger artifact, but he goes into a wizard's palace that's not there on vacation and then gets caught eventually. And it's just so mundane and dumb of him that kickstarts this whole adventure. And that's what makes it all, hilarious.
It's the human urge to do shit, right? Like that's what it comes down to. And honestly, that's what I love about because magic or not, right? Humans are going to have those urges to do what they want to do, to be selfish, to be petty, sometimes to be good as well, right? Like some people are more community driven, but wizards certainly aren't. Wizards are obviously all assholes every single time, at least in this setting.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I feel like the twist is beyond ridiculous and amazing. I'm a big fan of that. And I suppose that will do it for this episode of World Build with us. So a big thank you once again to our listener, CEM Ono, for the prompt. We had a ton of fun with it. Thank you for the prompt itself. And of course, if you want us to build your world, if you have a prompt that you want us to build, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, you can go ahead and click that subscribe button over on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild, or if you'd rather come and talk to us directly, we're on Discord. You just come chat with us about what kind of wine your shitty wizard would make, or whatever, And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, or you just want your prompt to have 2 episodes instead of 1, among other great patron-only benefits, you can always go to our Patreon and donate to the podcast and us that way. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until next week.